Merhabalar herkese. Ben Ebru Tarım Dilekcan. Londra'dan sevgiler diyorum ve bu Süper 7 TV kanalındaki yeni bir programa benim için çok özel bir konukla başlayacağım ve bugün aslında sizin için benim biraz sürprizlerim var. Her ne kadar şu anda Türkçe konuşuyor olsam da benim sevgili konuğum İngiliz bir bayan ve bütün aslında konuşmamızı, bu röportajı ben İngilizce yapmayı seçtim. Sevgili Süper 7 TV kanalı da buna okey dedi ve ben daha sonra tüm yayını kendim Türkçe'ye çevireceğim sizler için. Aslında bu sizin için sevgili Türkler bir fırsat. İngilizcenizi birazcık belki test etmek için. Benim İngilizcemi duyacaksınız. Daha sonradan İngilizce öğrenmiş bir Türk'üm ben de. Türkiye'de doğmuş büyümüş bir insanım. 22 senedir yurt dışındayım. Ama Ruth İngiliz. Doğal olarak native speaker'ın da İngilizcesini duymuş olacaksınız. Var mısınız? Benim gibi bir canla böyle bir maceraya girmeye diyorum. Umarım kimseyi kızdırmıyorumdur. Tamamı İngilizce olacağı için yayının. Bu da bir yeni bir şey hayatınızda diyelim. Dört gözle tercümeyi bekleyecek olanlar da var ama her şey bir katkı hayatta ve benim programımın ismi de Her Şey Mümkün. Evet, her şey mümkünse bunun da sizler için mümkün olabilmesi için neler mümkün diyorum ve before I just go any deeper in Turkish, let me switch to English and welcome my lovely guest. Actually, my dear friend, I can also say that one. Ruth Eastham. Welcome, my sweetheart.
Thank you so much, Ebru. It's a pleasure to be here, really is.
I was going to say it's a privilege and honor to actually have you on this screen and talking to in English. I just briefed Turkish people that this is probably their first actually program that they're going to have the whole conversation in English initially because they are so used to me as the program owner just like translating the guests and asking questions in English and translating you and myself. So I'm not going to do this time. I'm actually speaking throughout, English, and I will translate you and me after the event in a different video, whole in Turkish, just specifically for Turks. So it's a pleasure to have you here, and I know you just came back from United States after a series of amazing events that I happen to be there with you.
Yes.
We can make some people jealous a little bit, maybe. So I'm not going to jump into that one right away because I want our actually lovely people to get to know you. So if you can say, I don't know, maybe a couple of sentences about you. Who is Ruth Eastham? Where does she live? What does she do? What does she like? What is her passion in life? Anything you want to say about yourself.
Yeah, these are all questions that I'm constantly asking myself, as time goes on. So at the moment,
who am I?
In the present moment, who am I? Yeah. Yes, thank you for that, Ebru. It is, again, a real pleasure to be here. I'm Ruth Eastham, and I'm a children's author and a teacher. I trained as a teacher back in the day and have spent many years in the classroom, especially with primary age children, primary school children in the UK. But I've also taught in schools in other parts of the world. I lived in New Zealand and I lived in Australia. And I have the absolute privilege now of being able to combine my writing, my children's books, with making visits into schools all around the place. And I've been into lots of schools around the world. So that's a bit of a history. I'm living in Italy at the moment by the sea. So I'm in a beautiful part of the world. And I'm also based back in Cambridge in the UK when I'm over there. So it's kind of like a bit of a split personality at the moment in between the two countries.
That sounds amazing, actually. You're all over the world. And interestingly enough, like I was in New Zealand as well. We have quite a lot of things joined, I'm in UK, in London, in your country. How interesting, isn't it? Like, I want to hear a little bit more about your books, actually. Like, I know, how many books do you have, Rose?
Okay, so there's 5 published ones officially.
Can I see something in the background? I think I'm able to see some of them, maybe.
Yeah, there's some in the background, sort of like by coincidence, they've serendipity, they've like appeared in the background. Yeah, and also you'll notice a book in Turkish, which maybe we can talk about in a little while. But
talk about that. Definitely, for sure.
So 5 officially published books. Another one that I produced for schools, it's not actually available, but it was a story that was illustrated. That was a sort of partnership between me and an amazingly talented illustrator. My first kind of illustrated book, which I'd love to get into the mainstream one day, because
Do you want to just show the inside of the book? Because I
Yeah,
want to have the sense of the book. And these are all children books, Ruth, am I right? All of
they're
them.
children's books, yeah, they are. But I mean, you know, some books, when I've talked to teachers and parents about them, they've often said that they enjoyed them as well, you know. So what I like to think about my writing is, although, you know, you need to give a target audience for your books, and that people are always asking, teachers are always asking me, who is the book intended for? What's the age range? I like the idea that stories are kind of, they have lots of different layers, all right? So they can be read on lots of different levels, depending what you're bringing to the story. And it's not necessarily limited by only, so there's just an example from The Moonlight Hair, the sort of the Roman mosaic. So there's a bit of an Italian connection with this one. So yeah, I'd like to think my stories are for everyone on whatever level. Yeah,
I like that. I would love to read these books. Like, you know, I'm just imagining right now myself, like as a mom, I'm reading that book. I wish I had that book by the time when my daughter is quite small. She's 15. I don't know whether she will be interested in reading these books. She might be, actually. You never know. I might be even interested in reading them. So it will be so cool. Like, yeah, parents are interested in the topics. Like, and I think your main topic is mainly your storytelling. And can you also a little bit tell, you know, what are these books are all about? Like, you know, how you're attracted into storytelling? Like,
yeah, well, I've always loved writing right from primary school. And when I go into schools, you know, and I make the children smile by showing them what my first book was. And they all think, oh, it was Memory Cage. And they're all really, really sure that that was the first book. And then I show them, you know, the Good Fairy, something that I wrote when I was 7. And so I try and put across this idea that, you know, we're naturally storytellers as human beings. This is how we've evolved, isn't it? By sharing who we are and what we are through our storytelling. And it's such a primitive, primeval kind of thing to do. So, you know, my stories evolved in very much kind of writing right from the first moment. And then my first like official books, or the published books, were interestingly both based around World War II stories. There was the Memory Cage has an Alzheimer's connection, because my granddad, and now, you know, sadly my mom, is affected by this illness, and so that has that sort of that connection with memory and all that kind of that goes with it. And then my second book, the Messenger Bird, also a World War II story. So for some reason, a bit of a fascination
with the World War II. The Messenger Bird. Wow.
Yeah, the Messenger Bird.
And they're quite thick books, by the way, you know.
You know, these are the kind of standard length, maybe, that the publishers like 50,000 words, 55,000 words for a chapter book for the sort of independent readers at primary school and into secondary school. So these first two books with these World War II themes, Moonlight Hair as well, with a World War II backstory, you know, behind it. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. But then, interestingly, my latest 3 books are all kind of more geared into like supernatural themes. So all historical, all taking sort of elements of the past and sort of factual knowledge, right? But then weaving in my own sort of interpretations and imagination. So sort of supernatural, ghostly, maybe, worldly, being sort of like inspired by sort of ancient myths and legends, and, you know, where does fact become fiction, and those kind of really intriguing.
Wow, it sounds amazing, actually. It's not in a scary way, am I right? These are not scary books.
Well,
No.
you know, kids like a bit of scare, don't they? So, yeah, because if we think about, you know, watching stories on the screen, and sort of a lot of emphasis now on, you know, it's interesting what you said about your daughter, 15 years old, and, you know, what sort of stories are that age group likes to read. I have 2 daughters, 15 and 17, and they're both, especially my younger one, who's 15 as well, the same age as yours, I believe, yeah, the same year, is very, very into her reading. And often it's, you know, that connection between what they can watch as films and what they can read, and then the tie-ins between the film and the cinematography, and then the actual stories and the tie-ins that there are. So that's interesting how teens now are very much sort of visual aren't they? In the way that
They
they
are very, very
want
true.
their stories given to them. Yeah.
It's amazing. It sounds amazing, actually. Even when you're talking about them, I can feel you. I can sense you. You're already in your books, and it is so nice to be able to see them. So maybe we should talk a little bit about your Turkish book. You know, I didn't have the chance of seeing it, reading it yet. How this happened? Like, how you end up having your book translated into Turkish?
It's amazing, really, because mysteriously I'd completely forgotten about the Turkish book. And how could I? I don't know. Until I met you, and then the Turkish connection. It was almost like it's sort of gone into the background. And what happened was when Arrowhead, so this was the sort of the second cover, you might see it with a different cover when you look around for it. When it was published by Scholastic originally, can't remember exactly when, but they got a deal with a Turkish publisher to translate the story into Turkish.
Wow.
And I was supposed to receive a copy of it. You know, that was part of it. For
Oh,
some
yeah.
reason, I never saw one. And then the years went by, and I forgot about it. That you do. And then I was sort of reorganizing my social media and having a look, website, Instagram, and trying to get a bit more technological and advanced and a bit more, sort of with it. And I suddenly remembered, there's a Turkish translation of Arrowhead out there somewhere. And managed to find it online and buy a copy and get it sent. And so here it is. And so it was really beautiful to rediscover this edition. Yeah.
I love to read that book, actually. I love to read. And what would it take, given that we are already addressing to Turkish people, what would it for them to choose to read it as well? Like, I will be so interested to get your other books to be translated into Turkish as well.
That would be amazing. That would be
what else?
Amazing.
What else is possible? That's probably what we are creating here, like with the energy, like our connection and all that stuff. Truly, what would it take? I love to hear a little bit more about your school visits. I know you are very active in school visits. You're already planning something in December. I know it's a quite intense trip. And what do you do when you go to schools? And just give us an example. What do you do when you just walk into a school? Because probably there will be some people who might be interested to invite you to Turkey.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, I did visit Istanbul and a school there, an international school there, and it was a wonderful experience. Well, school visits for me, it's very interesting because coming from a teaching background, and having that formal training, and going into schools, in that very formal way, and the sort of the planning, the assessments, and the, within the UK system, just that's where what I know. Can't speak for the other systems in different schools in the world necessarily, but the planning that the teachers have to do, and the inspections, and the government kind of tick boxes that they have to. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of, let's say, bureaucracy that's involved in that, and sort of being part of that, and have the inspections and done all the preparations. And that's been really interesting then to be able to shift, like I say, a real privilege to come out of that with that experience, but then to be able to go into schools as a teacher author, or as an author. I don't really usually say to people, I'm a teacher and things like that, and to go in with a different hat on, and really just cause chaos wherever I go. No, it's not quite like that. But I don't have those formal requirements so I've got that sort of creative license to go into schools and really just and just do some maybe slightly different things with the children, or things that is outside the normal, more rigid curriculum that they have. Yeah. So creative work, creative writing. I often base my stories, my creative writing workshops around my books, but I will, I'm open to also to fit in with what's going on in the classroom already, and adapt to that. So I have a very flexible approach according to what the teachers want. But the key thing is really fun, creativity, inspiring children to read and to be curious, and to ask questions, and then to express that in their creative work, without feeling like you know, like this is going to be marked, or we're going to be ticking things and giving a grade. Just allow that beautiful, like, creative license. So I guess that's what inspired me to do.
That's amazing. What you reminded me, I mean, years ago when my daughter was very early stages in her school, I think that was even, you know, earlier than the primary school, I was invited to read a book to her classroom. This is what, you know, some moms used to do, and you're volunteering yourself. And I was one of the volunteers as well. And I was actually like very excited to be surrounded by these little kids and like holding a book and reading it and showing the pictures. And I think they were just about to learn reading or whatever. It was a lot of fun for me, like even being with them. You're actually so lucky to be able to engage with kids. Like, this is your profession, this is your job, and they're beautiful, creative, endless energies all around you. You made me excited, actually.
Yeah, I'm excited myself.
although I'm a mom of a teenager, it's a different excitement. I don't want to go into any details of it. You have 2 teenagers with yourself as well. So it's amazing. It's unbelievable. And what you're doing. And really, what would it take for your workshops? I would call them as workshop, if I may say so, to be actually embraced to or by so many schools all around the world. It's also like outside the curriculum. I like that part. Sometimes I think the lessons, the classes are quite a bit of structured, and they can be just very similar to one another. And having you in a school environment with this energy, with that many books written, even one of them translated into Turkish, I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, I love to have this lady in my school, you know, if I'm a school owner or you know, manager, administrator. So I'm putting this energy for our Turkish listeners. What would it take? Having this lovely international lady to actually put your amazing energy to the schools, to the children. And kids, I think, for the time being, they need more than ever people around them who have different energies. Like, you know, not necessarily, as you say, just like ticking another to-do box, like, you know, marking another class, getting another score for their reading or writing. So it's something different. Yeah, truly. What are the infinite possibilities for more schools to open up for what you're able to offer, my dear Ruth? That's what I would like to say.
That would be wonderful.
That would be amazing.
And just as an add on to that, Ebru, I have in the past also, you know, and often when I go into schools, the teachers get involved as well, you know, when we do free writing, when we do what I like to call power writing, where you just kind of let it flow and let whatever comes. And that they often, you know, tell me afterwards, oh, that was such a liberating thing to do. And some teachers are doing these wonderful things already. You know, there's some really fantastic practices going on, really dedicated teachers who are pouring in so much creativity into their lessons to really just engage with the children. I mean, there's so much of that going on already, and that's a joy to really connect with those teachers as well. So try and involve the teachers in what we're doing. And I've even sort of had, you know, events where, after school events maybe, where parents are invited and children are sharing what they've done with me during the day. And then we even get the parents work, you know, I don't like to say working, but being part of the creation process. And often it's like, oh my goodness, like, can I do this? And lots of judgments going on and insecurities, which then kind of allow sort of people to just express themselves, maybe in a way that they've not been able to for a lot of years. You know, it's a little locked. It's a little bit locked inside.
I love that too, actually. Like, I mean, if we think we're talking about only students, you know, kids, whereas there are teachers involved, where there are parents involved, and with your approach, like all of them can get benefit out of, you know, these workshops, these events. I would say it is unbelievable. And I'm sure you know a little bit about, like, I have a huge interest in kids as well, in parents' schools, and I have already done with my dear sister good number of school presentations, like to show them there are different possibilities. We can get these kids more relaxed. They don't need to be stressed. You know, they can have some magical questions to ask when they don't feel like themselves. And surprisingly, you reminded me in one of the presentations, we initially talked to obviously teachers, you know, and the head of the school. And that meeting actually showed us they also would love to get benefit out of, the sessions that we were planning to run for them. Not necessarily directly kids initially, like they want to say, like, we want to have these tools, whatever you're saying, I need that. And hearing that from teachers was amazing for me. And I was actually, I was able to show them what else is possible in the education system. I hope more and more people gonna embrace that. So I want to ask you this question, like, what are the changes that you would like to see in the education system? And what is actually possible that maybe we are not there yet, but we can be there? And maybe with your help, maybe with some initiatives, like what else is truly possible for people like us, like to see the changes, even in the education system?
Exactly. I mean, it's a time of, as we know, of great shift and change, and sometimes with that it brings turmoil, doesn't it, and insecurity. I'm from a family, a very sort of deep-rooted family of teachers or educators, let's say. My younger brother, is the head of a big secondary school in the north of England. My dad, his whole career was a primary school teacher, and deputy head, and and maybe that was back in the day. That just reminded me, because sort of back in the day, if I remember sort of growing up, my primary school experience back in the 70s, right, when it just felt so much more open to, you could spend, for example, I remember a whole afternoon, or every afternoon of the week, doing special projects with you and your friends, and you get together and you choose a topic, and you just, be engaged, and you'd be researching, and you'd be chatting, and you'd be finding stuff out and interacting in a very creative way, and then producing something very creative. And as, like I say, my focus is, or my specialism, I guess, or my most experience I have is with primary schools, where I guess the curriculum can be more open up, because you've got the same class teacher usually for most of the day, and you can sort of like collaborate, sort of, so I'm not so fixed into timetables and bells ringing and things like that. And what would it take to sort of have more of a shift back to those freer days? And I know I've talked to a lot of teachers who are, currently in school doing fantastic creative things, but they do feel, the general feeling is within the UK system, can I just say, this is the impression that I get from friends and from what I see when I go around schools, is there can be a lot of sort of pressure put on you, or teachers can feel a lot of pressure to kind of conform to certain, time spent on certain subjects, and satisfying kind of objectives that they're kind of given to them from, state, through government kind of channels as to how things should be taught and what should be taught. I think you have maybe a greater freedom at primary levels, potentially. And so I wonder if will be more naturally more of a relaxing of the schedule, and a relaxing of the timetabling, to give teachers like that trust, or to kind of tell teachers, we trust you as the educators, as the, it's such a heartfelt profession, isn't it? It's a profession that is led from the heart to educate young people, and to kind of have this relaxing, so that teachers feel they're trusted to educate in the way that feels right to them. So I really feel very positive about future kind of education, and how it could be integrated more into the school day. Yeah.
What would it take the shifts that we are going through as a planet right now to be reflected in the education system as well, across the planet? And if you are talking about UK system, what would it take that to be, flex, maybe relax in that such a way? And I'm sure that will be far too much fun for kids. And that might actually prevent them to be a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to say that way, but like, I will say it anyway. It will prevent them to turn into a stressed adults in the 10, 15, 20 years time. Like, what would it take, that creativity, that energy of the kids? Like, we all remember when we were kids, like, we sometimes amazed with the level of energy they have. Like, they run all day long, they do these classes all day long, and they still have the energy when they come back to home, like, still do a lot of stuff as well. So the source of that energy is coming probably from a very different level than what we have as adults. So I will be looking forward to see that, Ruth, and what would it take that to be actually like in our lifetime, if possible.
Yeah. Well, it is already happening, and I mentioned, that I lived in New Zealand for a year, and there was a teacher, a very young teacher called Rachel, and she was teaching in the classroom next to mine, and she was, at the time doing unprecedented things. It was very unusual for even because I found the New Zealand system very actually open and innovative, and there were lots of initiatives that were coming through. And being adopted, which were very, very interesting, creative approaches to teaching and learning. And what Rachel did was that she introduced meditation into her class.
Wow.
And I always thought, wow, and now I look back and I think what she actually was doing was absolutely incredible. And it would have been so lovely if that had kind of filtered through and spread. Perhaps the other teachers or the rest of the school wasn't quite ready for that at that point, years ago now. But I remember she had her class had a reputation, these labels that get put on kids when they're not engaged, they're naughty or they're disruptive, right? And she just had if you walked into her classroom, there'd just be this stillness and calm that was just, there was no evidence of any like this is a difficult class or there are problems here. And every day she would do a very, I think short session of meditation with them, relaxation, just being in the present. And it was just incredible what this sort of transformational effect was when the children were just given that space, and that calm as part of their day. So what would it take, to even have this as kind of common practice, as I guess it is in schools in other cultures, in other parts of the world, in the Eastern kind of Eastern education. And I would absolutely love, I think, and again, this is setting up, a great sort of passion, a desire, or a hope that I can, or see myself in visiting, like some schools in, India, or I'm actually going to be visiting Vietnam next year. I've got a sort of a school tour set up over there, and just to visit some schools that kind of are kind of more in touch with that consciousness, those consciousness kind of ways of educating and being with the children. And it would be so lovely. Just I'm very much a beginner in this work, just to see how they do it, and to whether that could be translated into, step by step, baby steps into the Western sort of paradigms of education. Yeah.
I love what you're saying, actually. Meditation in schools, wow, truly, what would it take? And I think we are putting the energy, and I hope lots of people can actually embrace that idea. Then I will just share something with you that when I heard first time ever, I don't know from whom, a kid's quite young age, like she's so stressed, or he, and I can't remember, like stress for a kid. And I'm like, kid and stress, for me, these are not the two words supposed to be together. Like, I don't even get how a kid can actually know the meaning of stress, or, feeling stress. So I was actually really kind of like, what is going on? How on earth that stress, which we all have somehow in adulthood, in our modern, societies as adults, like how we manage to, I'm going to say we, because we are parents, we are the ones doing this, like how we manage to get this, stress level all the way down to our kids. It's for me, it is unacceptable. For me, it is actually something needs to change. And I don't remember the word stress in my childhood because I didn't hear it from my parents. I didn't live in a surrounding like I feel stress. So that came to my life quite at a later stage as an adult. So if meditation can contribute to release all the stress we already, unfortunately, put into our kids, what would it take that to be the case? Like, what would it take the schools, the parents, the teachers, the administrator of the schools to hear what we are saying? This is actually quite key. Then afterwards, we are getting worried about our kids when they're at the teenage stage or whatever the age that they start showing like with some, you know, discomfort physically or mentally, we start getting worried. But like, there are things that we can do before coming to that stage, before almost getting, you know, you need some help. So I love that idea. And I know you and I are into some meditations. Maybe we can also, before I'm going to ask at some stage to you, like, what is next for you? And I already have an idea about Vietnam. And I know you will be doing some tours in the UK. And what would you take? Whole 2023 will be maybe far too busy for you to travel from one country to another country, you know? And yeah, what is next for you as an author, Ruth Eastham?
Yeah,
Like, what
it's
is
so
on the pipeline?
exciting. Yeah, it's so exciting because it just seems to unfold almost on a daily basis. You know, it feels like a very, you know, it could be unsettling. You know, what am I going to do? Where am I going next? But then just being open to those possibilities that come, you know, and following my heart as to where I feel that I want my work to take me, step by step. And so I guess, yeah, this sort of connecting with schools in a more consciousness way, definitely. I mean, in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be in London, interestingly.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a bit of a tour of London schools. And for the first time, I've talked to teachers about this, you know, and said, you know, what do you think about this? About as part of I usually give a big talk, you know, to the school, to the whole sort of big assembly. Because it can be 300 or 400 children. And you know, the more the better, as far as I'm concerned. I love big audiences, you know, and sort of the energy of that. And I like to make it fun and very interactive. And I give a big talk about my inspirations as a writer and where my ideas come from, and creativity. And I'm thinking for the first time between now and Christmas, going to some London schools to introduce a few little very, very sort of, you know, short and sweet consciousness type, meditation type exercise. We'll all sit still, and I'll kind of use that to kind of lead into some creative writing, you know, to sort of see what comes from that, and then lead that into some sort of like free creative writing and flow. And so I'm very much kind of experimenting with some things very much in collaboration with the teachers, you know, because it's obviously got to be not me just coming in and introducing new things and thinking, whoa, what was that? You know, we weren't expecting that, but just to sort of surprise and engage, and to get the teachers involved as well, and then just see, like I say, baby steps where that might lead to. So some exciting times ahead, definitely.
It sounds like it, and timing is perfect, actually. I mean, I would like to say, who wouldn't want to have this in their school as a teacher, as a parent, like, you know, especially, you know, what we are going through as a planet, as a humanity. It's a very interesting time. So what would it take to have our kids, our teachers, our administrators, our parents to get more relaxed, actually, to be in the moment? You just keep using this beautiful word, like, and yeah, it's mesmerizing what you're planning, what you're heading, and like putting these little seeds. And what would it take more and more people to embrace that? And I'm sure kids will be so happy just being around you. I can actually see that huge audience, like, you know, looking up and listening you. And she's an author, like she already written so many books. Look at this. And yeah,
well, they're always very, you know, they're so funny, and they always make me laugh so much. You know, we have a lot of humor in my events, and we always laugh a lot and have lots of jokes and have lots of fun. But a classic kind of thing, I remember a young child sort of gazing up at me during this presentation. At the end, she asked me, you know, are you very famous? And I went, oh, you're famous, aren't you? Oh, yes, very, very famous. And then she said to me, you arrived in your private jet, didn't you? And I was like,
not yet, not yet. The answer is not yet.
They come up with these just priceless things all the time, and they really, really make me smile. And I love using, although my stories, you know, they're independent readers, you know, they're like for kids to read, either be read to by parents or teachers, or, you know, more mature readers to read them for themselves. But I don't exclude very young children from my school visits. You know, often like Jaguar Trials, which is a book I've got at the back there, set in the Amazon rainforest, and I've done presentations and workshops with children, you know, right at the very, very youngest age of school age, where we look at, you know, rainforest animals, and we look at, you know, kind of creating stories with our imaginations, going into the rainforest and in search of El Dorado and some of these lost civilizations, you know, and so I just love all of that as well. So yeah, I love the full age range of children going into schools and working with them, no matter what age they are.
Which is the beauty, actually. Can I be one of your participants at my age?
Of course.
I would love to. It's fascinating, because I hadn't had any of that in my, actually, you know, education when I was in Turkey. So it is fascinating. What would it take truly? I love, and you ask the same questions, like, what would it take truly, all your passion and all your desires, like all your inputs, to be received by any culture, any country. And also Vietnam, you mentioned, this is a very different culture, you know, very different part of the world, and what you're going to experience there will be an amazing input. What you're going to create from that one onwards, actually, it is amazing. You're also bringing so many different countries, cultures together. I mean, if you think the kids, they are not so much culturally, I would say, like structured or framed or, you know, programmed, I can say. They're too young, especially if you look at the young age, and it will be amazing to hear. Actually, what I'm thinking right now, it will be amazing to hear your adventure of 2023 in another program that I'm going to do in 2023. So we will be following that one up, actually. That's what I'm getting good.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. And it's very much a learning curve for me, as life is, isn't it? We're always learning.
Yeah.
And, I would so much love to have collaborations with the teachers, or like-minded teachers. We talked about the Dr. Joe Dispenza event that we went to, and I know that Dr. Joe is starting to connect with, you know, health professionals, isn't he, and nurses and doctors and health specialists, and it's got to be that in all the events, you know, that are engaged in this work, there must be a lot of educators in the mix, and what would it take to get connected to other teachers and other educators to collaborate on possible new paradigms and ways into the, you know, bringing these things into schools, around the world. Yeah.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, you mentioned about, and maybe in the last 5-8 minutes we can talk about like your experiences in these events, and what can you share with these people that who are gonna, you know, listen and watch us, because there is an element that the world is almost ready more than ever to hear, or so many people are more than ever ready to hear so many different things right now. And that's the whole purpose for what I'm doing this program. Like I'm saying, everything is possible. This is the same name of my book, and I know everything is possible. I know you and I have been going through a little bit roller coaster, I should say.
Say that.
Yeah, I can say that, I guess, since August, and that was amazing. That was the weeks and months of my life so far. And maybe we should you should start giving a little bit like glimpse of like, how was it, these events for you? You spent good number of time in the US recently. Just what can you share from your experience that people can hear from you and I right now?
Yeah, well, it was just extremely I would, you know, I don't think the word or the words kind of like, you know, awe-inspiring or life-changing for me, certainly the work that I've done, or the experiences that I've had with Dr. Joe Dispenza's workshops, and, you know, the people that I've met there, and the new sort of ideas that's opened up has been really life-changing for me. On a more practical level, we've got the evidence that we attended.
Mine is being charged, actually.
Yours is being charged. So,
it is being charged.
Yeah.
You're reminding me to put that one on. Yeah, we are part of their research. Yeah.
People that don't know about this, so that just absolute sort of just gobsmacking, awe-inspiring to be able to be part of this continued study, a more in-depth study that was going on. And long story short, we had lots of samples taken, and now we have these sort of like these special watches to monitor the different things, but being monitored during all the meditations, and the data's being processed, isn't it? Now, my background as well, and I don't know if this has come through, but I actually did a science degree. I science educated, did a chemistry degree, so. And I did wonder for quite a bit of my life, why did I do that? What was
that about?
Chemistry, and I think that's what really engaged me with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. How much science is involved, and how he's using, the science and the data as evidence for the very real sort of changes in consciousness, which a lot of people can really relate to, especially in the Western world, and that's absolutely fascinating for me. I remember reading his book and all the data and all the graphs and the chemical equations and the molecules, and just like really fascinating. So I thought, oh, finally I've understood, why did I go through all that organic chemistry that I really struggled with at university, and it all makes a beautiful kind of circle back. And so that kind of experience with how the science is mixed with the spiritual is just really, really fascinating for me. And I think it will be so, it seems like it's already happening, in a big way, how the new ways of thinking are now backed up by the science in ways that can't be disputed anymore, and what was classed as pseudoscience up until very recently is now like, you just can't argue with these results. It's not just, sort of people's stories and anecdotal evidence. It's actually there in the hard sort of scientific facts. And this will be a major push, I'm sure, for people to take on these ideas, or at least to suspend their disbelief and maybe embrace the work more easily, maybe
in a different way. Like, there are so many people, they need to have the evidence, they need to see the evidence, and it's almost like, in his work, he's actually giving it all. Like, I mean, I used to have quite a lot of questions in my mind, and what I said when I attend when I met in London event, like, he almost like just fill all the gaps in my mind, like, or gave the answer of everything I have been questioning. And it's almost like I was getting ready to receive all this information over the years. And as probably we can easily jointly say, it is not something we can explain what we are experiencing on these events. It's just, whoever is ready to be there or choosing to be there is actually going to be there and have their own personal experiences. It's so unique, and the beauty is actually you come out of these events in a very different way, physically, emotionally, mentally, in such a empowered, and also almost like, if I can say, like, you have all the permissions given to you to be you. Like, there is nothing that can actually limit you. It's how it's called, unlimited, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I felt that so strongly. And I am just like loving, as you said, like, he's so into education, health, corporate, like, the main common element is human beings. We're all there. Like, doesn't matter which structure or which culture, which country, or what we have been up to so far. But like, what if from now on things can be different? What if everyone has actually superpowers? We just need to acknowledge that, believe that, and then discover it. Like, it's an exploration. I think life has been always, for me, like an exploration, to be perfectly honest with you. And now I can't wait to translate this conversation. Like, for example, I just want to say, like, translation is not something that I get education at all. Like, I happen to have a university all in English, and my corporate life was all in English, and I have been abroad the last 22 years of my life.